understanding how to work with data and how to do data-driven decision-making is a skill that applies, that's basically going to apply forever, but it certainly applies to just a huge array of decision-making contexts. And, you know, we place it in the mobility space, but this is really a very general purpose skill and way of thinking about information and how we act on it. As a statistician and data person, I kind of think that data can solve almost any problem. But you know, when we're thinking about mobility and what the really sort of big issues are, I would say that the big ones that we have real hope for, where we have data and we have real hope for solving them, are first of all safety. And we talk about this endlessly, but we're still losing over 30,000 people a year in the US to traffic fatalities. And that's just talking about, you know, cars, trucks, sort of road travel and so on. So that's a really important one that needs to kind of stay at the top of the list. And certainly data, it has been helping for decades and will continue to do so. Secondly, transportation equity and solving, you know, transit deserts and solving transportation insecurity. So people who cannot get to food that they need, who cannot get to healthcare appointments, these are basic needs, not just, you know, not just vacation travel that, you know, some of us sort of think about. You know, this is critically important for individuals, and there are pockets of this country where people really can't get to the things that they need. And so that's one where data will help a lot. We need to find those. We can find those pockets. We can sort out how transportation system needs to change in order to make it possible for them to get places. And then I guess the third one I would say is the climate related and the environment related aspects of transportation. Transportation sector is the biggest contributor to greenhouse gases, and we have the ability, we have the data, we have the ability, we have the technology to make an impact on that. And again, I think data becomes really critical in finding the pathways to solve all three of those problems. So based on current trends, the transportation system of the not too distant future basically has to be more connected than it is now, and certainly will be. And this is not just thinking about, you know, let's say, connectivity in the sense of vehicle to infrastructure communication or vehicle to vehicle communication, but simply having coordination amongst different travel modes. So multimodal travel is clearly a, you know, kind of a, you know, a movement, a wave of the future, especially in urban areas, but I think increasingly in, you know, mid-sized cities and so on. And so that connectivity, both the ability to, you know, have single source payments for mobility to take, you know, a multi-step trip, and then, you know, ultimately including for safety and all kinds of things, there's no question that that will become an increasing component of the transportation system. So I think in the next few years, mobility is really being most affected by automation. It seems, you know, fairly obvious, but basically the tools and the kind of ways that we get from place to place have been around basically since the turn of the previous century, especially, you know, where cars are kind of the dominant mode, and trains were even before that. And now what we're, I think, you know, clearly going to see is that as automation comes into play, it will kind of change the options for people. It will change our ability to sort of influence how mobility is done with respect to environmental impacts, and it certainly will change the safety game for sure.